10 Things You Didn't Know About Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil McGraw has done a lot of living in his 68 years on the planet. From his humble roots in Oklahoma to amassing a multi-million-dollar fortune, there have definitely been some bumps along the way. While Phil may spend most of his time on stage in front of TV cameras, there are still a substantial amount of things people just don't realize. Let's take a look at 10 things you didn't know about Dr. Phil. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos about your favorite movies and TV shows. Number 10. He doesn't like therapy. At first glance, the doc looks like one of the most qualified therapists out there. He's got the PhD, the lingo, and the fancy suits, but it's all a bit of a smokescreen. Many top psychotherapists in the field have slammed McGraw for his methods, with some stating that they're totally ineffective. What's more, the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill have condemned his work too. According to them, the way he interacts with guests is damaging, unethical, and could even be a threat to life. Phil once penned a blog post defending himself and his qualifications, but in 2001 he confessed to not believing in therapy at all. In fact, he basically said the whole one-on-one practice between doctor and patient was useless. "I'm not the hush puppies, pipe and let's talk about your mother kind of psychologist," he mused. Number 9. Like father, like son. It turns out that Dr. Phil isn't the only showman in the family, as his son Jay hosted his own show on Fox called Renovate My Family. Very similar to ABC's Extreme Makeover Home Edition, the series focused on helping struggling families improve their lives by redesigning their home. Unfortunately, Jay has more in common with his dad than the small screen: lawsuits. In 2007, the Rogiers were approached by scouts for the show as their son had disabilities. While the family said they would love a new garage to stop teenage Michael struggling from the car into the house in icy conditions, producers told them that they weren't thinking big enough. According to the Rogiers, they were forced to sign a contract but didn't realize their home was basically going to be torn down. Because of the settlement and other factors, Jay's show promptly ground to a halt. "Hollywood destroys people's lives," Gary Rogier told the LA Times. "They don't care. They act like they want to help you, but they don't. They just want to make money." Number 8. Texas Forever. When it comes to ruffling the feathers in the psychology community, Phil started it pretty early on. In 1988, the 38-year-old doc landed himself in hot water when he hired a former patient to work in his father's office alongside him. When the Texas State Board of Examiners of Psychologists got wind of the situation, they weren't pleased, citing a possible failure to provide proper separation between termination of therapy and the initiation of employment. Phil was formally warned and kept under close watch for the next 2 years. As he did as he was told, the complaint was closed in 1990. What's more, the board also looked into allegations from the patient, who said that McGraw behaved inappropriately towards her. However, for some unknown reason, this is left off of the final summary of the report on the case. Not long after all this was squared away, the doc left psychology behind to start a trial consulting business alongside one of his lawyer pals. Number 7. College football star. Looking at the doc now, it's not hard to imagine him on the football field. The man is pretty well built. Before psychology seems like a valid career choice, Phil was running circles around players on the field of Shawnee Mission North High School in Kansas. By 1968, he was given a football scholarship to the University of Tulsa, which he grabbed with both hands. The doc played middle linebacker, taking instruction from former pro player Glenn Dobbs, who coached the team at the time. Dobbs had a glittering career behind him, having been named the 1946 MVP. Unfortunately for both of them, they were headed for embarrassment. In the same year, the team lost 100-6 to the University of Houston, making it one of the most disastrous losses in college football history. Mortified by the failure, Dobbs retired when the season ended, and Phil hauled his cookies to Midwestern State University, where he graduated with a BA in psychology. Number 6. Cameo King. You don't have to be a Dr. Phil expert to know that this is a guy that loves to be on our screens. Love him or hate him, you just can't get away from the doc. With 1,091 shows under his belt to date, Phil doesn't just limit himself to his show. In fact, he's appeared in multiple others. McGraw has graced Frasier, Sesame Street, The Simpsons, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and even Hannah Montana for special cameos, but it didn't stop there. He's a fan of the big screen too, grabbing the chance to star in movies like Scary Movie 4 and Medea Goes to Jail. As of 2018, the Oklahoma-born star is thought to rake in over $79 million a year thanks to all of his exploits. The Simpsons episode is a fan favorite as Dr. Phil tries to help Homer with his eating habit, only to be gobbled up by the cartoon dad after he thinks he is a piece of talking fudge. Comedy gold. It's hardly surprising that he'll take a check for simply turning up to set for a few hours. Wouldn't you if you had that opportunity? Number 5. Happy wife, happy life. As Phil has been with his current wife Robin for over 40 years, many of his fans presume that this is his first and only marriage. In fact, his first marriage was to former cheerleader and homecoming queen Debbie Higgins McCall in 2007. Debbie hasn't said much about her ex-husband, but she did tell an outlet that the union was unhappy, describing a life where she was confined to domestic duties like cleaning and cooking. What's more, she stated that Phil was domineering and abusive and purposely prevented her from making a living of her own. When she wanted to help in the family business, Debbie wasn't allowed. Instead, she was told to lift weights to improve her bust line. Interestingly, if you do an internet search for any of her claims, little comes back. We don't want to presume that she was purposely hushed, but it's unlikely that TV's favorite therapist would want any shady information being too readily available. Number 4. Family tragedy. Back in 2001, Dr. Phil's sister-in-law was traveling in her car when she was subjected to one of the worst horrors imaginable. Someone threw a jar of sulfuric acid from an overpass, which smashed through her windshield and burned her so badly that doctors gave her a 30% chance of survival. The mother of 3 battled through and overcame her injuries, even appearing on Phil's show to tell her story. Cindy discussed the effects of the attack and how the acid had burned over 70% of her body. Rather than letting her terrible experience define her, Cindy spent the rest of her life helping others to prevail over their own personal struggles. Sadly, she passed away in February of this year. Though Phil didn't publicly comment on Cindy's passing, his wife posted a touching tribute to her sister on her Instagram page. It just goes to show that these things can happen to anyone at any time.
I guess what's good for you is I made you just like how Oprah made you. You were nothing before I came on this show.
Thank you for that.
No problem.
Number 3. Thanks, Oprah. Cast your mind back to the 2016 episode where Cash Me Outside girl told Dr. Phil triumphantly, "I made you just like Oprah made you." Only one half of that sentence was accurate. Can you guess which one? The queen of daytime TV first stumbled across Phil McGraw when she called in his consultancy firm to help her when she got sued by Texan cattle farmers. She was so impressed by his work that she eventually invited him onto her show as a lifestyle expert. From there, Dr. Phil's star just carried on rising. If it wasn't for Oprah, it's unlikely he would be where he is now. While the two remain close friends, they've reportedly had their fair share of quarrels over the years too. When Phil tried to revive his ailing ratings back in 2008 by trying to hone in on Britney Spears' breakdown, many condemned him. Brit's family weren't impressed by his tactics as they initially thought he was really trying to help. According to Today, Oprah also called her friend out for his handling of the situation. One insider said that Winfrey was furious that he had used such a situation to promote his show. Number 2. Bull. When you're as famous as Dr. Phil, you're bound to have a book or a show written about your life. Phil has had both. CBS launched Bull in 2016, a show inspired by the doc's life at his consultancy firm, Courtroom Sciences, Inc. The show was a big hit, starring NCIS alum Michael Weatherly as Dr. Jason Bull, the fictional version of Dr. Phil. Although Phil was incredibly happy to be the basis for such a popular show, he was quick to point out that it was just inspired by, and not a strictly true version of events. It's probably best that he did make that distinction, as practices portrayed on the show aren't always strictly legal. Either way, fans loved it, and a season 3 is set to premiere sometime this year. I like the way the show tracks how we did the right thing and tried to take the higher moral ground in these cases, said McGraw. We kept the moral compass. Number 1. TV failures. As we've already established, Phil likes to have his fingers in multiple pies at all times. After all, the money isn't gonna make itself. He established the production company Stage 29 Productions alongside his son Jay. One of the first shows that they tried out was The Moochers, another reality show that promised to help families get rid of unwanted friends or relatives who had outstayed their welcome. Unfortunately, it was cancelled before it even aired. Phil didn't hang around and launched Decision House later the same year. But by November, the show was off the shelf, never to be seen again. There's no doubt that Phil has a talent for showbiz, but judging by these ventures and the failed show his son had, it might be a good idea to step away from producing and just stick to presenting instead. Thank you very much for watching today's video. Make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing content, and don't forget to check out one of the other 2 videos on your screen.